What did someone do to make you hate them instantly? You care if I throw this out your window? Yes, and I hate you for even asking that. Don't throw your trash into the street. I know you probably mean like an empty bottle while you were in your car, but my first thought was you in your room and this dude just picks up a random trinket or book and asks if he can throw it out the window for fun or something. I was dating a man I had only recently met and I had finally invited him to my house. We were in the garden and there's a frog that hides down the side of the wall. He's always lived there. I showed him where to look and see the frog peering out. He got his drink of Coke and threw it on the frog and started laughing as if it was funny. I threw him out and rinsed the frog with water. He couldn't understand why I was upset and why I had blocked him. What a prat. I hope the frog is doing well. I was walking through an airport terminal when I heard a woman tell the child in her stroller, "This is exactly why no one loves you." I still think about that kid. Oh man, I'd want to yell back, "That's not true. Your mom is just a C." We have this gentle, older autistic guy in town who is like a giant toddler and we all kinda keep an eye out for him. A guy comes into the place I work and starts talking about how he will blow quarters to the ground just to watch this adult kid try to pick them up, and just generally talking crap about him. And IDK, you have to be a special kind of a piece of crap to do that to this guy. He wears animal honors and is innocent as all heck. So that was an instant hate. Just a sweet guy who has no family, so we watch out for him as a town. She kept insulting her friend in front of me. I think she thought it was cute or something, and it was clear her friend was feeling uncomfortable about it, even at one point telling her to stop, which just made her repeatedly insult her more. Now whenever she comes by to talk, I get this shiver of disgust down my spine. I've had a couple girl cousins my age and female friends attempt to do this to me. Once. I say once because I do not tolerate that crap. Some upperclassmen girls at school calling me pretty and my friend immediately bringing up the most random embarrassing story from my childhood. Super cringe move, but I get it's human nature to try to compete. Laughed at my budgie dying. I still hate that bee. More than 13 years later. Frick you Justine, you heartless bee. Back when I was starting out as hospital security, we came into shift briefing. Outgoing supervisor informs us that a team member is in psych. He wouldn't put up with any jokes or any bulls about it or he would get you fired. I respected that because I didn't like this supervisor. Then his supervisor came in. Started treating it like it was the funniest thing in the world to have a guard in psych. Him and the lower supervisor, who had just gone on a rant about how he wouldn't stand for this kind of thing, were laughing their asses off about it. I have my own mental health issues and I knew every guard present, if suffering a mental health crisis, would no longer trust coming into the hospital for help for fear of ridicule. Hated the ranking supervisor for that and reaffirmed my dislike of the clearly spineless lower supervisor. She called me and begged to borrow some money from me and her brother without her husband knowing. She claimed it was for bills and groceries, but it was all for booze and M. I just casually mentioned them paying us back to her husband and he had no idea what I was even talking about. It was all news to him. They made more money than my husband and I at the time, but she was constantly asking us for more money, and she always tried to make it out like I was the problem for seeing right through her bulls. That's a common addiction trait. Projection. There was this woman at an old job I had. Now she wasn't the greatest, but I never really hated her. She was the type to bully people verbally in the workplace with rumors and snide comments. She once brought a co-worker to tears. She'd try to boss people around despite not have any position to do so. She wasn't a manager. Same level as everyone else. She seemed to have a chip on her shoulder towards our manager more so than anyone else on the department. A young relative of our manager got terminally ill. A local charity was set up in shop to raise money to send her for treatment as it was her only chance. We all chipped in and encouraged others to do the same until one day all the charity boxes disappeared. Turns out this woman had made an accusation to head office that it was all fake. That the money was just being pocketed by the manager. So to save any legal issues, the company just stopped allowing the money to be raised on the property. They never reached their goal. The manager's relative was only 12. She never got to see another birthday. That's when I hated this woman and I'll hate her until I can't hate anymore. Friend of a friend came out with us to a sports bar. Waitress gave him ranch instead of blue cheese for his wings and he screamed in her face. I paid my bill, gave her a really generous tip, and apologized for his behavior to her right in front of him. He just sneered at me as I left. Told my buddy to make sure me and that guy never saw each other again. Treating someone in a service job like crap is terrible. Doing it for an honest, simple to fix mistake is even worse. Never saw that guy again and I still wanna freaking smack his face. A coworker who asked me my zodiac sign and when I told them they got actually upset they weren't the only Capricorn at work anymore. She was 32 years old too. People don't age out of stupid. A few years ago I was having a small party with some friends and extended friends at my house, right? And this random chick who was a friend of a friend of a friend steals my chair. No, I don't mean she sat where I was sitting. I have a pretty large garage, about the dimensions of a house, and the party started there. I had laid out about 50 plastic party chairs that I rented for the party. Only about 40 or so people came though. So anyway, eventually the party gets led inside my house and she said she had to leave early and I didn't think much of it. But the next day when the guys came to collect their chairs, one is missing. I was shocked and counted them myself and one was indeed missing so I had to reimburse them for it. Same day I go to check the garage security camera and I eventually see this bee picking up one of the freaking chairs and trying to fit it into her car for a good 10 minutes. I freaking told everyone about it. Filthy chair thief. I hope the chair stealing W don't steal any of our chairs. Ignored all the times I said no to him nicely, and then when I finally blew up and got angry at him, he had the audacity to say then why didn't you just say no? OMG yes. I just had this happen when I told a guy he hasn't respected me turning him down nicely over years and I'll never be interested in him. MF had the gall to say he didn't recall me ever rejecting him but a simple no would have been clear. Ripped my brother's hearing aids out of his ears, threw them in the bus trash and wouldn't let him get back there until we told the bus driver. 29 years later and I still hate your butt, Brittany D. I hate you too, Brittany D. The father of my ex-girlfriend's kids treated them like crap. These were fantastic kids, smart, funny, deeply compassionate. I never wanted kids and these were incredible ones. When I met him, I literally didn't say a word to him because I was so freaking angry. Someone I used to know smacked their 2-year-old really hard, like really freaking hard, in the face just because he accidentally spilled a bowl of Cheerios, no milk, on the floor. Obviously the kid started to cry and I was absolutely mortified. Demanded to speak to my manager and lied saying I swore at him and called him names. Another customer defended me and told them to look at the camera footage. Ran down my wife while she was walking our dog. Drives off as people run to help. Drives to a caravan park and tries to park but fricks it up. Car rolls against a tree and gets stuck so he gets out and runs, leaving his girlfriend behind in the passenger seat because she's in the middle of an overdose. Hides for 2 weeks before the police find him and have him charged. Gets out on bail. One of the bail conditions is no driving. Is driving down the road, sees a police car and panics. Drive through a roundabout, as in straight line through middle of it, police notice and pull him over. Go directly to jail for being a dumb C. Happened nearly 2 years ago. Wife still hasn't fully recovered. Can't walk properly. Battled with prescription drugs, which he beat. So proud of her. And struggles with depression. Frick that guy. He can fricking rot. I'm so sorry this has happened in your wife's and your life. You don't deserve it, no one does. I wish you guys the very best as time moves forward. As a disclaimer, I already did not like him when this happened but this moment solidified how much of a piece of crap human being he is. At my grandmother's funeral, some of us were standing around at the funeral home waiting for everyone to arrive. My cousin and her husband show up and I wave them over. My cousin veers off to go see my grandmother in her casket and her husband joins the group. We exchange a couple of hey how are you that kind of thing. A minute goes by and my cousin walks over to us crying after having seen the casket. Her husband looks at her face and goes OMG, how are already crying? We literally just got here. He had no remorse and had the nerve to glance at the group of us in that, am I right kind of way. You can imagine the disbelief that I felt when he started shaming my cousin for crying at her own grandmother's funeral. He didn't even try and console her. What a piece of crap. My BF at the time had his sister come from Brazil to live with us while she got on her feet in the US. We picked her up from the airport and she immediately started talking crap about me in Portuguese. I don't speak Portuguese, but I speak Spanish and could understand enough to know she was talking about me. Not to mention it's rude to exclude someone from your conversation when it's only 3 people. Turn to boyfriend, you forgot to mention that your sister's a B. Smoked in my car. I was picking up some mates that were stuck in another city. Ended up giving a lift to some rando and they were drunk. Was a friend of a friend and they were smoking outside when I picked him and my friend up. I told him no smoking in the car. He then puts out his cigarette and jumps in. Halfway down the motorway I hear a lighter spark up and say, "Are you smoking?" His response, "Yeah, but we're on the motorway and I know it's illegal for you to stop." So I parked up in the hard shoulder and told him, "You can walk, or you can put that out. And if I have to drag you out of this car I will." He tossed the cigarette out of the car and was in butt the entire way back. My cousin, who among many other crappy things she's done to me, announced to my grieving family, right after my pap died, that I was pregnant. 1. Very bad timing. 2. That was my news to share. And 3. Nobody but my grandma was happy for me. It was extremely awkward and she, cousin, went on to keep doing other crap until I cut her out of my life. Frick, I've got some dark ones, but since everyone else has that side of it covered, I'll send one out that is less fricked up. 5 of us took my buddy, let's call him T, out for a bachelor night before his wedding. Pretty much just pubs, cigars and dinner. One guy I didn't know, let's call him J, couldn't stop talking about how much money he makes and how hot Dua Lipa is. So we go to the cigar shop and it's like $900 worth of cigars and we know T doesn't really make a ton of money, so we all pitch in equal amounts except for J. Whatever, I guess J doesn't like cigars. Then we go to the pub where J doesn't pay again. Getting a little pee off at this point, but frick it, it's T's night. So dinner rolls around and J keeps hardcore hitting on the waitress. Let me paint a picture to you of J. He's about 5 feet 5 inches. Dress clothes, bluntstones, long pea coat with the collar popped and a backwards ball cap that is sitting on the top of his head with the snapback practically covering his eyebrows. Frickin' guy thinks he's next draft pick for the NHL. So for his last attempt to woo the waitress, he says the bill is together and proceeds to take the machine, put a 40% tip and pass it on to the left where T pays with his card. I looked at the bill and it was nearly $400. Couldn't stop bragging about how much cash he made but couldn't even carry his weight. Frick you, Jay. Grabbed a girl who cowered away and raised his hand at her. The whole situation was indicative that it wasn't the first time someone I thought of as family abusing someone in my bar. Saw it on the cameras and ran out to the porch to kick him out. Outwardly lied about cheating. I had evidence, everything, and as soon as he didn't own up to it, I woke up and had an exit plan from his abusive butt. It's crazy how people still won't own up to their crap even when there's a crap ton of compelling evidence against them. Went on a double date with my girlfriend's friend and his SO. His SO was very pleasant, but every story someone told, he always had a more extreme version of the story. Just always tried to one-up everyone. To this day he keeps trying to get us to double date again, and my girlfriend and I both agree we can't stand double dates with him anymore. This type of person is called Tenerife in the UK. Tell them about your beautiful holiday in Tenerife. That's nothing. We went to Tenerife. Frick, some of this crap is dark. I was just gonna talk about the guy who dabbed for no fricking reason while we were having lunch. Haha, thanks. I came to the thread looking for this sorta crap in case there's people out there who might hate me for some random crap I did. I haven't smacked a 2-year-old or smoked him in front of a baby or kicked a cat, so I'm pretty much perfect, I guess. Accidentally hit their neighbor's dog with their car, left it in the woods to die, lied to the neighbors when they came by looking for the dog, then bragged getting away with it on Facebook. Someone hit my dog on purpose once. Drove over the huge rock we had in our yard just to hit him. He only broke his leg, thankfully. Still hate that person 20 plus years later. Have no idea who they even were. My husband's childhood friend is someone I will no longer talk to because of his dog. He left this Boston Terrier chained up outside in the Texas heat, then dropped the body off at the pound. Pound called the number on the tag his ex-girlfriend, and that's how she found out. His only regret? He didn't take the collar off. That poor dog had 3 people, myself and ex included, who would have willingly adopted him. And this person had the gall to go onto Facebook, after his ex posted about the dog's death, and talk about how heartbroken he was about Winston's death. Several people replied about how he had killed the poor dog. Found out later that his last dog had been shot by him. I didn't have the money to put him down, so I took him out in the woods and just shot him. I have never spoken to him since. Hopefully he marries someday and his wife wearies of him quickly and takes him in the yard and shoots him, you know, so she can move on. What a pose. They shot my dog. Last Friday, I was away from home, with my mom watching the place. She called and told me I needed to get home quickly, as my dog was hurt really bad. He bled out while she was trying to get him to the vet. It was an awful scene. I had to do a necropsy to figure out what happened. Near as I can figure, a poacher shot him while he patrolled the neighbor's field. Neighbor is an absentee landowner who runs cattle on that place. I don't know who it was, but I know that I hate them with every fiber of my being. I already hated poachers. I hate this one in a way that should frighten them very much. Sorry about your dog, that sucks. I dropped a friend once because she told us that she physically takes out her anger on her live-in housemaid who's quite old tbh. She was laughing as she told us this, even demonstrated how she kicked her. I try to never judge PPL but I will not tolerate abuse. I mean dang. There was no remorse whatsoever. I was obsessed with Lord Byron for all of 1 week in high school. Then I found out he got custody of his daughter from her mother, got bored with her, pawned her off on the servants and refused to allow her mother to see her despite the poor woman writing countless letters begging. He eventually sent her off to a convent where she grew ill and died at the age of 5. She cried out for her father on her deathbed but he never came. She died feeling abandoned and unloved. The only person who visited her was Byron's friend Percy Shelley. Yeah, it was 200 years ago but frick that guy. I once made a pact with a friend that if we ever used a time machine our first stop would be to kick Lord Byron's butt. Stealing my damned broccoli casserole recipe and claiming it was theirs. That thin-lipped bee still doesn't own up to it, since everyone is asking for it, and quite frankly a big frick you too Caroline. 1 stick salted butter, 1 stroke 3 lb Velveeta, broccoli, Ritz crackers, crushed, 1 teaspoon message. 1 cook broccoli until almost done. 2 melt butter and Velveeta together and mix it up. 2.5 add message. 3 layer crackers, broccoli and cheese mixture, with a layer of crackers on top. 4 put in preheated oven at 350 degrees until bubbling and browned. You puffer overflow. You not talking about my friend Carolyn, she a Cretan lady. I once let my then puppy out on a lead to go potty. I hear her barking and come running back to see what was up, and through the glass door I see my neighbor with a metal shovel swinging at her on the front porch. My dog was cowering and shaking and crying. My dog was a 8 months old, a tiny chihuahua who was leashed in my own full-sized yard. I busted out the door screaming at my neighbor, grabbed the shovel and got up in her face screaming if I ever see her near my dog or in my yard again I'd kill her. Now, I'm 5'2" 2 inches but I think I made an impression because she took off running and I walked to her yard and threw her shovel back on her grass. Still don't know if she actually hit my dog, but I have never hated someone more in my entire life. That was almost 13 years ago and it still makes my blood boil. Saw someone kick a dog once. Who kicks a dog? Be unnecessarily combative to retail workers, waitstaff. This girl was in our circle of friends through one of the other guys who I guess was trying to date her. Anyway, we all went to the mall, because that was still a thing, and she dragged us into every clothing store. We just wanted to check GameStop and grab some food, to basically spend 30 minutes trying things on without putting them back and being snobby and condescending to the staff. Then we went to some place to eat, IDR some Italian place. And it was busy, so most of us were cool with a bit of slow service. Not her. She was into her third iced tea, and when the waiter didn't come by for all of 5 minutes to refill her, she got up and stormed around the restaurant to find him and berate him. We never had time to go to GameStop, so I left half my game budget as a tip. I had a friend I'd been close with since childhood who has recently really leaned into this type of behavior. She's evolved into one of those adults who thinks being rude and condescending somehow makes her appear tough or cool. Yet she only does this to people who work in service jobs and are powerless to say much of anything back. I don't hang out with her anymore because of it. Went to large family gathering at my grandparents' house. I was 16 and my niece was there too. A neighbor of my grandparents was a trusted friend and was invited also. At one point I found myself sitting with this neighbor at a table at the cricket club. Niece and nephew approached us. This guy jokes, "Do you want her first? Or are you okay with sloppy seconds?" She was 9 Not willing to ignore it, I reported it to the family. That then led to a larger argument with some folks defending the guy as joking and some wanting to call the police. A lot of people wound up on my crap list for defending him. Good times. Good times. Good for you for not letting that slide. Simple thing. Years ago. Still remember it clearly. I was led and met another team for the first time. At some point this other guy started talking to his guy about me in the third person. Hard to explain how disrespected I felt. Some kind of weird power trip. Never liked him after and happy he is long gone. A security guard beat a stray dog to death with a stick and buried it. I hope that lowlife rots in heck. Absolute scum. Boasted about getting banned from a pub. You don't get banned from a pub by doing anything other than being a dong. I was right. She was a giant narcissist. Being balls deep in my girlfriend in my own bed pretty much sealed it. Not instantly, but in hindsight I was caught up in the system, and things just compounded over the years until a final realization that, well FK that guy, a senior workman took an idea of mine, and tried to make their own version of it, presenting it to the bigwigs who assumed I was involved with it. When questions were asked on our side and the validity of my initial ideas put forth, they framed it as a challenge of their team of 5 versus just me. Then eventually they questioned why I was wasting time and resources instead of helping. So I was told to work with their team on their idea, but never allowed me to do anything important on it despite contributing a lot on other projects before. All the way until he left the project for a promotion, and much of his team leaving. Then they had no choice but to give their pile of dung to me to get ready for production in 6 months what they had been doing for over a year. Good times. So glad I left. I was in middle school reading Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince and told a girl that I was a few chapters away from finishing and she said, "Oh, so you don't know that Dumbledore dies yet?" Me. Excuse me her. Oh my gosh yes, Dumbledore dies and Snape kills him. 13 years later and I still hate her. What a freaking B. You had to have read like 600 pages at that point and for her to ruin it after all that and after how emotionally involved you are at that point. What a freaking B. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.